I'm going to talk about some study tips, perhaps a skill that you may already use. If you don't, it's something that helped me a lot in very efficiently studying for such a test, such a comprehensive exam. I find that when I learn something, then move off to something else, it's very easy to forget the topic that I learned just last week. So what I find is that I need to review it very frequently in a very efficient way. I can't afford to spend too much time on something I've already spent a lot of time on, so I try to abbreviate the content into a short table or a few words where I can write it down very quickly, which is quite comprehensive, and then it allows me to, in my mind, I can then expand, or I can just verbally expand on the roadmap as such that I've just written down. I find this is something that we can do regularly and frequently throughout our day if we have a half an hour. What I used to do was sit down after my lunch break. I was working, and I would sit down and write down, get a blank page like this and write down many topics. Spend a few seconds on each topic, write down some information, and then I can expand, and it's a framework. It's something I can then use when I get into the exam, and it's like a roadmap, a guideline, and it also allows me to really efficiently study something. So the aim being I have studied it efficiently enough and frequently enough that it just comes to me without having to write down. So I'm going to describe a topic today and also demonstrate how I would utilize that tool. I'm going to talk about levers. To define a lever contains two forces and one axis. So for any lever, it must contain two forces and one axis. When I was researching and studying this myself, I was a little bit confused as to a clear term or title for the forces and the axis. Lots of different words being used to describe them in various books and online sources give different terms. So I will try to give a little bit of consistency in relation to this topic in particular today. Force number one, I'm going to term as the load. I've also seen that described, and I'm sure you have seen it described as resistance, which to me is a bit of a physics term and doesn't really tell me too much personally. So this is best described as body weight, or simply a weight. Force number two. A consistent term I would like to use is effort. A more of a physics term to describe effort is the applied force. And then a more of a biological reference to effort would be muscle activity. I must apologize about my handwriting, it's not the best. It reminds me of how I speak sometimes, or definitely how I used to speak before I moved to this country, where it's a little bit unclear and a little bit perhaps a little bit rushed. My speaking has improved, I believe, but it seems that my writing hasn't managed to catch up just yet. The last feature is the axis. The axis, commonly referred to fairly consistently throughout the literature as the fulcrum, also termed as the axis of rotation in some texts. So the main body of what I'm trying to describe today are the classes of lever, how you describe the different classes of lever. There are 3 classes of lever. So I'm going to draw some diagrams of examples, the most common example of the classes of levers in the human body. Alright. First example of a class of lever. It's not a good picture, but hopefully we get the gist. An example of the second class of lever would be and then an example of the third class of lever would be okay. We're going to try and match these definitions to the picture. We can see here, hopefully, that this is the elbow extensor. We can see this here is a weight, so it's going to be L. We can see the axis of rotation, or the fulcrum, here, fulcrum, and this scribble is the muscle activity, the effort. Here, this is supposed to be the ankle plantar flexors. The ankle plantar flexors, this is going to be the axis of rotation. The fulcrum, this is supposed to be the body, so it's going to be the body weight, which comes down about here, and it's going to be L. And finally, this scribble again is the muscle activity, it's going to be E. Finally, we have the elbow flexor. Again, the weight is going to be L, the muscle is effort, E, and then the fulcrum is here. I'm going to define them by the order that they come, which is essentially how you define a lever, the order in which these features appear in the certain lever. We can see it's L, F, E for the first class of lever. For the second class of lever, it is F, L, E, and for the third class of lever, it is L, E, F. The first class of lever, the 2 forces are to one side of the axis. For class 2 and 3, the 2 forces are to the same side of the axis. And the difference between 2 and 3 is the order in which the forces come in relation to the axis. Alright, this can be abbreviated quite simply. I'm sure you might be able to come up with your own abbreviation term or acronym, but for me it makes sense to very quickly review levers by going 1, 2, 3. F, L, E, L, E, F. Okay, I could say life, flee, left. Life, flee, left. 3 words to remember and give me a roadmap to correctly identifying the classes of levers. We are looking at a sagittal plane view of the human body. The person which this arm belongs to is facing to the left, the left, the left. It is a sagittal plane view looking from the left side. If, I hear you ask, the question is reversed and it's a question asking about a lever in a different order, we can then mirror this abbreviation to the following. And therefore this is looking from the right sagittal plane view of the lever, and then we can again describe the different types of levers. From here we have again our what we need to remember: life, flee, left, 1, 2, 3 in relation to the classes of levers. Then we can effectively or efficiently study and quickly review this in order to retain the information. So we can write down the words, we can see, okay, load, fulcrum, effort, fulcrum, load, effort, fulcrum. Write down that, and then we can simply reverse it, and then we can expand even more. Class 1 of the lever, LFE, it's going to be an elbow extensor or a triceps brachii. An example of a second class of lever would be the ankle plantar flexor. Again, the triceps surae, the gastrocnemius, etc. And then thirdly, it will be an elbow flexor or the biceps brachii.